Hi! Guess what time it is? You're right! It's story time! Do you like my hat? I like it too. It's red and white stripes. So fun. And it's from Cat in the Hat from Dr. Seuss. You know that our classroom is full of stuff from Dr. Seuss because Teacher Christy really likes it. Okay, and you like it too, don't you? Good. Okay, so this story is called My Nest is Best. So I'm just going to pick up my book here and let's see what it says. Mr. Bird was happy. He was so happy he had to sing. This is what Mr. Bird sung. I love my house. I love my nest. In all the world, my nest is best. Then Mrs. Bird, what did she say? Then Mrs. Bird came out of the house. It's not the best nest, she said. Oh, poor Mr. Bird. I'm tired of this old place, said Mrs. Bird. I hate it. Let's look for a new place right now. So let's turn the page. Here we go. So they left the old place to look for a new one. This place looks nice, said Mr. Bird. Let's move in. So there they flew. Let's turn the page. But somebody else had already moved in. So they looked at another house. This one looks nice, said Mrs. Bird. No, said Mr. Bird. And there's nobody in it. Except look! Oh no! You're wrong, said Mrs. Bird. This house belongs to a foot. Oh, that is crazy. So they went on looking. I like this one, said Mr. Bird. It has a pretty red flag on the roof. I've always wanted a house with a flag, said Mrs. Bird. Maybe this place will be all right. What do you think? Let's turn the page. But it was not all right. Look, I guess I made a mistake, said Mr. Bird. Poor Mr. Bird. You make too many mistakes, said Mrs. Bird. I'm going to pick the next house. And here it is, right here. There they go. They flew in. They looked around. Isn't it too big? Asked Mr. Bird. I like this big place. Look at the big bell. Ding, 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 said Mrs. Bird. This is the place to build our new nest. They went right to work. They needed many things to build their nest. First, they got some hay. Got the hay to build the nest. They got some soda straws and broom straws. They got some sweater string. Look at all of that. They got some horsehair. They got some man hair. Oh, that is crazy. Let me turn the page. Soon they had all the hay, all the straw, all the string, all the stuffing, all the horsehair, and all the man hair that they could carry. They took it all back to build their nest. Mr. and Mrs. Bird worked very hard. It took them the rest of the morning to finish their nest. This nest really the best, said Mrs. Bird. I want to stay here forever. Mr. Bird was very happy too. He flew to the top, there's Mr. Bird, of his house. He sang his song again. I love our house. I love our nest. In all the world, our nest is best. He was so busy singing, he didn't see Mr. Parker coming. Every day at 12 o'clock, Mr. Parker came to the church. Mr. Parker came to pull a rope. There's the rope. The rope went up to the bird's new nest. What's going to happen? Bong, bong, bong. The rope rang the big bell right under Mrs. Bird's nest. Uh-oh. Mrs. Bird got out of there as fast as she could. Bong, bong, bong. So Mrs. Bird went this way, and Mr. Bird went that way. When Mr. Bird came in, all he could see was a mess of hay. Look at that. And string and stuffing and horsehair and man hair and straw. Where was Mrs. Bird? Where did she go? I will look for her until I find her, said Mr. Bird. There he goes, flying around. He looked low. He looked high. He looked everywhere for Mrs. Bird. He looked down into the chimney, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Whoopsie. Let's see, there we go. He looked down in a water barrel, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Just the horses that went neigh, neigh. Then he saw a big, fat cat. Meow, meow, meow. There was a big, fat smile on the fat cat's face. There were some pretty brown feathers near the fat cat's mouth. Mr. Bird began to cry. Oh dear, he cried, this big fat cat has eaten Mrs. Bird. Oh no! Mr. Bird flew off. I'll never see Mrs. Bird again. He cried. It was getting dark. It began to rain. It rained harder and harder. Mr. Bird could not see where he was going. Poor Mr. Bird. Look at the tears. You see? He's crying. Crash! Crash! Mr. Bird bumped into something. What did he bump into? It was his old house. That old house that Mrs. Bird hated. I'll go inside, said Mr. Bird. I'll rest here until the rain stops. He's going inside his house, his old house. Mr. Bird went inside, and there was Mrs. Bird sitting there singing. I love my house. I love my nest. In all the world, My nest is best. You? Here? Gasped Mr. Bird. I thought you hated this old nest. Mrs. Bird smiled. I used to hate it, she said, but a mother bird can change her mind. You see? What do you see? It's an egg, a blue egg. There's no nest like an old nest for a brand new bird. Oh, look, it's an egg and a bird's gonna hatch out of it. And when the egg popped open, the new bird thought so too. Look at the new bird. Can you see it? Oh, he's so cute. That end. I hope you enjoyed the story. See you soon.